25%. That's all Shane Brooks said when he slid the folder across the table. No build-up, no explanation. Just those two words that turned 18 years of my life into a budget line item. I'm Pierce Sullivan, 47 years old, and I just watched my career get cut down to size in under 10 seconds. The crazy part? Shane thought I'd actually accept it. Let me back up. I started at Red Rock Distribution when we operated out of two beat-up warehouses in Phoenix and El Paso. This was back when our computer system couldn't track a truck if it drove more than 50 miles without someone manually typing in updates. I was young, hungry, and had some logistics experience from my Army days. Over 18 years, I became the guy everyone called when everything went wrong. Truck breaks down in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m., call Pierce. Customs holds up a shipment at the border, Pierce knows which broker can fix it. Hurricane shuts down half of Texas, Pierce has backup routes mapped out already. I didn't just manage operations. I built the entire Southwest freight network from scratch. Every mile of Interstate 10 from California to Texas, every way station that causes delays, every customs broker who could speed things up, I knew it all. When the automotive plants needed parts delivered on time or production lines would shut down, costing them thousands per hour, my network made it happen. The thing about logistics is nobody notices it until something goes wrong. My job was making sure nothing went wrong. For 18 years, I redesigned routes, built relationships with drivers, and kept Red Rock's Southwest operation running smoother than anyone thought possible. I knew which hub needed extra attention during monsoon season. I knew which border crossing moved fastest during shift changes. I knew which carriers would stick with us through problems and which ones would bail at the first hiccup. This stuff doesn't come from reading manuals. You learn it by doing the job for nearly 2 decades. But here's what kills me. I never asked for anything crazy. Just wanted leadership that understood what I actually did. Most people don't think about logistics until their car parts show up late and their mechanic can't fix their truck. Behind every delivery that actually arrives on time, there's someone like me making 1,000 small decisions that prevent disasters. That's why I gave Red Rock everything. I believed in what we were building. I stayed late, came in early, worked weekends. I took on stuff nobody officially assigned me because the alternative was watching the system fall apart. As we grew from 2 warehouses to 11 major hubs and 32 smaller facilities across the Southwest, my role kept expanding. I wasn't just a director anymore. I was the guy who designed pretty much everything that kept Red Rock competitive. But I never made a big deal about it. I just did the work because I cared about doing it right. My wife Sierra always said I was too loyal for my own good. Turns out she was right. When someone spends years telling you they value your dedication, then treats you like you're disposable, it hits different. It makes you question every memory you have of that place. The meeting that changed everything was scheduled for 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. Early morning meetings are never about good news. They're about control. When I walked into the executive conference room, Shane was already sitting at the head of the glass table, hands folded, wearing that expression people get when they've already made up their minds. Next to him sat Quinn Martinez, the new COO who'd come over with Shane from some retail chain. Quinn had this practiced smile from the orientation presentation, the kind that says people are just numbers on a spreadsheet. "Pierce, thanks for coming in," Shane said, using that fake warm voice they teach executives. I sat down across from them, morning sun casting long shadows on the polished table. He pushed a folder toward me like he was handing over a restaurant menu. "We've been looking at compensation across the operations division, found some issues that need fixing to match corporate standards." Corporate standards. I'd heard that phrase before. It always meant the same thing. "We found a way to pay you less." I kept my voice steady. "What kind of issues?" Quinn tapped her tablet like she was delivering a medical diagnosis. "Your current salary is way above the national average for logistics directors. National average. Sure, if you ignore that most other directors handle one facility, not a multi-state network with cross-border operations and seasonal surges that can make or break automotive production lines." But I let her talk. "We're proposing a salary adjustment," Shane continued. 25% reduction plus performance bonuses tied to cost savings. Right there, I knew they didn't understand anything about what I'd built. They wanted to cut my pay, then offer me bonuses for helping them cut more costs. Like the whole network wasn't already running on the thinnest possible margins between efficiency and disaster. 25% cut, I repeated quietly. Shane leaned back like we were having casual conversation. It's a chance to reset things, show the board we're serious about running lean. Reset things. Running lean. Corporate speak for we think you cost too much and someone cheaper can do your job. I took a breath, fighting back the urge to laugh. And if I don't agree? Shane's smile flickered just a little. Then we'd need to look at other staffing options. People who can handle similar work at a more reasonable cost. Other staffing options. Translation: we'll replace you. The funny part wasn't the threat, it was that he actually believed it would work. I looked Shane straight in the eye. So after 18 years, you're saying my value just dropped by 25%? We're saying the company needs to optimize, Quinn jumped in smoothly. Optimize. I'd watched people like Quinn destroy entire operations because they confused optimization with oversimplification. They treated expertise like overhead instead of insurance against million-dollar disasters. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a declaration. They'd already decided I was a cost, not an asset. They wanted me to roll over, not push back. Shane closed his folder like a judge wrapping up court. We need your answer by Friday. The board approved this, and we're moving fast. 3 days. 3 days to decide whether to accept getting kicked in the teeth or walk away from 18 years of my life. Got it, I said, standing up slowly. I'll have an answer Friday. When I walked out of that room, I didn't head straight back to my office. I needed real air, not the recycled corporate stuff that always smells like copy toner and desperation. I went out to the loading dock and watched forklifts buzzing around like worker bees. No idea the hive was already cracking. I stood there replaying Shane's words. Reset things, corporate standards, optimize. Every phrase sounded so clean, so calculated, so completely disconnected from what I actually did every day. People like him make decisions from conference rooms. People like me keep companies from falling apart in the real world. Back in my office, I didn't panic or feel sorry for myself. When life sucker punches you, the worst thing you can do is freeze up. Instead, I opened my desk drawer where I kept 18 years of proof. Every performance review, operational report, efficiency study, and cost savings analysis I'd produced. Not some sentimental collection. Evidence. Evidence of every dollar I'd saved Red Rock, every crisis I'd prevented, every disaster I'd quietly rerouted before it hit anyone's radar. Contract retention rates stabilized because of carrier schedules I designed. Seasonal bottlenecks eliminated because of capacity models I rebuilt from scratch. Millions saved because I caught routing screw-ups before they turned into federal compliance nightmares. The irony was perfect. The smooth operations Shane bragged about inheriting during his first month, those were my systems. He saw everything running perfectly and assumed it was automatic. Guys like him always make that mistake. When things work flawlessly, they think it's easy. When things blow up, they finally see the invisible hands that were holding everything together. I opened my email and searched for names I'd been saving for years. Regional VPs, directors, recruiters from competitors who'd tried to recruit me more times than I could count. I'd always said no. Loyalty used to be my thing, but loyalty becomes stupidity when you're being loyal to people who treat it like a discount coupon. I wrote 3 messages. Short, professional, honest. I didn't sell myself or beg. Just said I was looking at new opportunities and would be open to talking. I hovered over the send button for maybe 10 seconds. Not because I doubted what I was worth, but because it's hard to walk away from something you built, even when staying means losing yourself. I hit send. Right away I felt this weight lift off my shoulders. Clean, steady relief replacing the sting Shane tried to deliver. That night I went home and told Sierra what happened. She listened without interrupting, then said exactly what I expected. About time. You've been too good to them for way too long. By Wednesday afternoon, I had my first response. By Thursday morning, I had 2 solid job offers. By Friday, I didn't need Shane's opinion on what I was worth. I'd already figured that out myself. Friday morning felt sharper than usual, colder. I walked into Red Rock knowing it was my last day as operations director. My resignation letter was sitting on my desk like a promise I was ready to keep. I picked it up and walked straight to the executive floor. Shane's assistant looked up, surprised. He's in a meeting. Trust me, he'll want to take this one, I said, and pushed open the conference room door before she could stop me. Shane and Quinn looked up from whatever they were discussing. expressions switching between annoyed and fake professional. I placed the envelope right in front of them. "My decision," I said simply. Shane hesitated before opening it. When he read the first line, his eyebrows shot up. "You're resigning? Effective in 2 weeks?" "I'll make sure everything gets transitioned properly," I confirmed. He blinked like this possibility had never occurred to him. "Pierce, we figured you'd take the weekend to think it over. The adjustment wasn't set in stone. It was a starting point for discussion." I almost laughed out loud. "Shane, that wasn't a discussion. That was a message, and I heard it loud and clear." Quinn leaned forward with that artificially sweet tone executives use when they realize they miscalculated. "I'm sure we can work out terms that recognize your experience while meeting our budget goals." I shook my head. "You had 18 years to do that." Silence filled the room like dust settling. Not hostile silence, just resignation. Except it wasn't mine. "We have capable managers who can take over your responsibilities," Shane said, sounding defensive now. "This won't be as disruptive as you think." "You're right," I agreed. "You won't notice anything today or tomorrow, maybe not even next week." I let that sink in for a second. "But you will notice." I watched his face twitch just slightly. "Are you saying the operation can't function without you?" "I'm saying systems don't run on paperwork alone," I replied calmly. "You just eliminated the know-how that kept this place from collapsing under its own complexity." "Where are you going?" he finally asked. "Summit Logistics. They offered me VP of Southwest Operations. I'll be building their new cross-border network from the ground up." Quinn's expression changed. She suddenly understood what that meant. Summit wasn't just another competitor. They were Red Rock's fastest-growing threat in automotive logistics. And now they'd have the guy who designed Red Rock's best years. I'll have the transition documents finished by end of day, I said, standing up. "After that, the network is all yours to handle." Walking out of there, I didn't feel like I'd won some big victory. Just felt relieved, like finally setting down a heavy bag I'd been carrying for years without realizing how much it weighed. My 2-week notice period was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Not the kind that announces itself with loud crashes, but the quiet kind where things just start falling apart piece by piece until the whole thing collapses. By Monday of my first week, the first crack showed up. One of the routing analysts, someone Shane figured could handle my responsibilities, approved a freight transfer between our Denver and Albuquerque hubs without checking regional wind alerts. Any Southwest ops manager who's been doing this for more than 5 minutes knows that corridor between Pueblo and Raton Pass gets dangerous during certain wind patterns. I'd spent years tracking those patterns, building schedules around them. That morning, 2 of our trucks got stopped by Highway Patrol because of hazardous driving conditions. The delay meant we missed our delivery window for a major auto parts client. One delay by itself isn't the end of the world, but in logistics, delays never stay isolated. They're like dominoes. Knock one over and everything behind it goes down too. Tuesday brought crack number 2. One of our dock supervisors called my personal cell, which wasn't supposed to happen since Shane had redirected all operational questions to his new transitional steering committee. "Pierce," the guy whispered like he was afraid someone would hear him, "we've got a serious problem." The El Paso inbound sortation is completely backed up because containers that were supposed to go to Phoenix got sent to Tucson by mistake. The team tried to fix it, but without that predictive load balance thing you used to run every night, they just threw more trucks at the problem instead of actually solving it. The result? Tucson got overwhelmed, El Paso ground to a halt, Phoenix ran out of freight, and every facility downstream felt the pain. The freight network works like blood flow. If one artery gets clogged, the whole body suffers. Worse than that, several of our automotive clients noticed the delays. One big manufacturer sent a nasty email threatening to review their contract if we couldn't get our act together. I didn't fix it. Couldn't fix it even if I wanted to. I wasn't allowed to, and honestly, it wasn't my problem anymore. Day 5 hit harder than the rest. The new operations integration lead, some title Shane invented to make himself feel smart, approved a carrier switch in the middle of the month without recalculating mileage zones. He thought he could save money by moving 2 major lanes to a cheaper regional carrier. Problem was, he didn't know that carriers' terminals were always behind on package processing. He also didn't bother checking the weather forecast showing storms moving across Oklahoma and northern Texas. Within 24 hours, we had a backlog of almost 12,000 packages, 3 distribution centers flashing red on every dashboard, and a contract violation notice from a client who's famous for having zero patience with screw-ups. The team went into panic mode. They scrambled, shouted, reassigned trucks, rerouted everything except what actually needed to be done. Anticipate problems before they happen. The system I'd spent 18 years building wasn't broken. The people trying to run it just had no idea what they were doing. None of this surprised me. For years, people wondered why I always stayed calm during emergencies. The truth was simple. I saw the emergencies coming long before they became emergencies. My job wasn't putting out fires. It was preventing fires that nobody else even knew could start. A week into my notice period, things escalated to a whole different level. One of our biggest clients, the one whose freight made up about 15% of our monthly volume, demanded an emergency call with executive leadership. Their shipments had been late 6 times in 8 days. They wanted answers and they wanted guarantees. What they got was Shane stumbling through a bunch of corporate buzzwords about temporary inefficiencies during personnel transitions. One of the managers texted me after the call. "It was brutal, Pierce. They're furious." I didn't text back. Sometimes silence says more than words. By the end of my second week, the cracks had turned into full breaks. Everything falling apart was stuff I could have prevented. Everything going wrong was predictable. Everything happening was the direct result of one decision: Shane thinking he could replace 18 years of knowledge with some cheaper alternative. 9 weeks later, I was settled into Summit Logistics and loving every minute of it. For the first time in years, I was building something new without having to fight for every resource or justify every decision to people who didn't understand the work. Summit wanted my brain, my experience, my systems. They weren't shy about saying so either. I was sketching out a new synchronized routing model when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. "Pierce," the voice said, and I could hear the strain in it. "It's Shane." For a second, I didn't say anything. The collapse must have gotten bad enough that he couldn't hide it anymore. He cleared his throat like he was getting ready to deliver bad news to someone's family. "I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity for you to return to Red Rock." Interesting word choice considering the state their operation was in. "I'm listening," I said, even though part of me already knew exactly where this was headed. Over the past several weeks, he started carefully, we've run into some coordination challenges. The transition team is doing their best, but the complexity of the operation, well, it's become clear that the systems require knowledge that only you have. I leaned back in my chair looking out at Summit's clean, organized operations floor. "What are you asking, Shane?" The silence stretched long enough for me to picture him rubbing his temples the way he did when the numbers weren't adding up. "We'd like you to come back in a senior role. Executive VP of Southwest Operations. Better title, more authority, complete recognition of your value." The desperation in his voice told me this wasn't just a generous offer, it was a necessary one. "Your compensation would be fully restored and increased 42% above your original salary," Shane continued, his voice getting more desperate by the second. I looked out my window at Summit's operations center. Teams working together smoothly, software running perfectly, delivery boards showing green across the board. A system built with respect for people who actually knew what they were doing. "Shane," I said slowly, "you offered me a 25% pay cut because you thought someone cheaper could do my job. What changed?" He let out a long breath. "We underestimated what you brought to the operation. The board understands now how important your oversight was. The cost of the recent problems has made that crystal clear. I didn't ask what problems. I already knew. Word travels fast in the logistics world, and the word on Red Rock wasn't good. They'd lost 3 of their biggest automotive clients. Several carriers had walked away after repeated delivery failures. The backlog at their El Paso hub was so bad they had to rent emergency overflow space, which only made the delays more visible to customers tracking their shipments. "I'm sure you know," Shane added reluctantly, "that Summit is expanding aggressively. Your involvement there has really accelerated their growth." Translation: "We handed our biggest competitor the guy who built our success." "Shane," I said gently, "it's too late. Pierce, please, this isn't just about Red Rock anymore. The whole network needs stability. Your leadership could fix the damage." "I gave Red Rock 18 years, I replied. "You valued that at a 25% cut. You don't get to talk about loyalty now that you're drowning." He didn't respond, but I could hear the defeat in his breathing. "You made a choice," I continued. Now you're paying for it." "What would it take?" he finally asked, his voice cracking. "It would take going back in time," I said, "to before you decided my worth was a line item on a budget spreadsheet." Long silence. Then, "I understand." And he hung up. I stared at my phone for a minute afterward, not feeling triumphant or angry, just certain that walking away was the smartest move I'd ever made, certain that Red Rock wasn't collapsing because I left, but because leadership never understood what kept it running in the first place. The real payoff came over the next few months when the industry started buzzing about Red Rock's meltdown. This wasn't some scandal or lawsuit. This was the slow, predictable death of a company that gutted its own expertise. From my office at Summit, I watched the reports roll in, more carriers dropping contracts, clients moving their freight to competitors, every metric that mattered going in the wrong direction. The final blow came when Red Rock's quarterly earnings showed a $12.3 million spike in operational losses. That number spread through logistics circles like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know how a company that stable could fall apart so fast. The internal explanation was typical corporate nonsense: unexpected market conditions, temporary transition challenges, unforeseen disruptions. But people who actually understood logistics knew the truth. They'd ripped out the brain and expected the body to keep working. Meanwhile, Summit was having the exact opposite experience. The synchronized routing system I'd designed was beating every projection. Delivery times improved, carrier relationships got stronger, our Southwest expansion moved 6 months ahead of schedule. Summit's CEO joked with me one day, "Whatever Red Rock gave up, I should probably send them a thank you card." I didn't say it out loud, but I kind of agreed. A few months later, I spoke at a regional logistics conference. My topic was operational foresight, the backbone of modern distribution. I talked about the invisible weight of logistics work, the decisions nobody sees, the disasters prevented behind the scenes, why understanding patterns matters more than just reacting to problems. After my talk, a young supply chain manager came up to me. "Pierce," she said, "how do you deal with leadership that sees you as overhead instead of essential infrastructure?" I looked at her and felt that familiar recognition. I'd been there once, working twice as hard to prove value to people who couldn't see what value looked like. "Document everything you do," I told her. "Learn the patterns, get ahead of problems. But if your leadership treats you like a cost instead of an investment, don't waste your life trying to convince them otherwise. There are companies out there that will value what you bring. Go where you're respected, not just tolerated." She nodded like she was filing that advice away for later use. These days, I've got 2 things framed on my office wall. On the left, Shane's letter proposing my 25% salary cut. On the right, the award Summit gave me for designing the most efficient cross-border logistics network in company history. That contrast tells my whole story. One company saw me as a number to reduce. The other saw me as the reason their numbers improved. Sometimes corporate leadership calls it budget optimization. Sometimes the industry calls it restructuring. But I know what it really is: failure to recognize value until it's gone. Red Rock learned that lesson the expensive way. I walked away and built something better than I ever thought possible. The thing about getting older in corporate America is that stability can become a trap disguised as comfort. Routine can make you ignore warning signs you would have run from when you were younger. I convinced myself that 18 years of service guaranteed respect. It didn't. People get used to your competence and start thinking it doesn't cost them anything. When the wrong leaders take over, loyalty becomes leverage against you. They expect you to stay because you always have. But here's what I learned. When you stop defending a place that won't defend you, you get your power back. My revenge wasn't dramatic or loud. It was simply choosing not to save people who'd already decided I wasn't worth keeping. Red Rock didn't collapse because I wanted them to fail. It collapsed because it finally had to stand on its own. In today's world, where industries change fast and loyalty means less than it used to, you need to know when to walk away from the table. Your worth isn't measured by who keeps you around. It's measured by who values you enough not to lose you in the first place.